And it's Gordo here from Gordo's Games, all back some more content for you today. So today I'm bringing you a Marvel Snap profile. I will just disclaimer, not complete some that I've built in any sort of fashion. You will see a lot of these decks have been tried and tested, as well as some additions and tweaks on my side. Before we go into it, if you do like the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you know when this content goes live for you. And let's just get straight into it. Alrighty, here we are at the setup. So as you can see here in the title, it is my Conquest deck. Now, it's not something that I feel like I can change much. I've tried tweaking around with it as much as possible, and I feel like the ratios and everything that's in there works as well as it can do, and a lot of it's very hard to deal with in some fashion. So to give you a rundown of how the deck plays, it's basically using ongoing effects that are all negative. Well, majority are all negative. Now that sounds like a bad idea, right? It is, but that's why we run Sauron here, which normally would be a terrible card to see in some decks, because I've had it pop out of X Mansion, and I've had an Iron Man in hand, and it removes my Iron Man effect, and I cry to myself, but you know, we move past that. So basically, on reveal, move the ability to all ongoing cards in your hand or deck. So that would normally be terrible, but we do run things like this. So look, for example, Red Skull. Ongoing enemy cards at this location have +2 power. That doesn't sound great, so we're giving them, if they've got 4 bodies, we're giving them +8 power just for having this guy out. So removing that is great. Typhoid Mary, your other cards have -1 power, so it's minus in 1 of our power. Not great, so let's remove it. Lizard, -4 if your opponent has 4 cards here, so we are going down to being a 2-1, which is just tragic. Ebony Maw, you can't play this turn after turn 3. Ongoing, you can't play cards here, so it shuts down location entirely. So, I mean, it's a 1/7, so it's a pretty big body. So it's nice to get down, but if you can't play anything afterwards, that's just a loss on that point. So as you can see, generally we're just looking to shut down a lot of things here. Overall, the deck's playstyle on that is pretty straightforward, I would say. You are just going for big stats overall. Your turn 1 play normally is pretty easy. You either go Sunspot. If you have 0 and Ebony Maw in hand, I'd most likely play down 0 and then turn 2 play Ebony Maw and then Sunspot if you have it. Otherwise, you just go Sunspot, turn 2 you go Armor, which means you generally don't end up playing into Ebony Maw unless you can go this at some point. Armor's great because you are looking to build up big bodies, which I'll get to the card that does that in a minute. So we want to make sure they can't be popped by things like Shang-Chi, stuff like that. If we do see another turn 1 to 2 play, if we do see Lizard, we go 0, then Lizard turn 2 is always a nice one, because if we can keep that as a 2/5 without being hindered by them having more cards, that's generally good, and it gives us good stats all around. My mic's dancing here. Okay. Turn 3, this is what you want to play turn 3. If you don't see this, it's not the end of the world. You can still make around with the big stats as long as you see some of the other cards. But otherwise, you generally want to see this turn 3 every time. Otherwise, you'll kind of mix up your combos here. If you have gone Sunspot into Armor, or Sunspot into to Lizard, or 0 into Lizard, you can try and play even more, but as long as you have this to play down first, you don't ever want to play this. If you are going to shut down location, it's just a bad idea. But that's generally turn 3. We can kind of mix around with that, but yeah, you want to see this time and time again. Turn 4 is pretty straightforward for us. You want Shuri. If you can see Shuri, if you have Armor and you can see Shuri, you're generally looking to be in a good place, I'd say. What Shuri does is, if you play your next card here, double its power. Now, as you can see here, we run some big stats here, so 14, 10, 9. Even something like Enchantress going up to a 10 double power isn't the worst thing, or Ebony Maw going to 14 power. It all depends on what you're able to play into, but if you can play the Shuri down and then play the next card there and double its power, you're in a very good spot. Enchantress we keep in here because it helps us shut down things like Patriot decks, Wong decks, anything that has ongoings that could cause us some issues. Typhoid Mary is just in there because she's a big body. Obviously we want to try and get rid of that ongoing, but she's just a big body. At 4 cost, 10 power. Taskmaster tends to be your turn 6 play. I know it's 5 costs and it sounds like that might be backwards, but what you want to do is you want to establish your big body. So you go turn 4 Shuri, turn 5 you go one of your bigger bodies. So it could be Red Skull, could be Typhoid Mary, could be if you can get She-Hulk, could be She-Hulk, could be Enchantress, could be all of those different things. You just want to try and get the biggest body down possible. And then what you do turn 6 is you play this down and you copy it. It copies down whatever your power you've got. So if you double the power of Red Skull, you're going to take 28. You're going to get 28 over here. There is not a lot of decks. If the point is uncontested, or it's only got minimal buffs on there or power on there, there is not a lot of decks that will take the win on that one. Unless obviously they Shang-Chi it or they Cosmo it to stop you can get the on reveal. But you generally try and play around that as much as possible. And then obviously Red Skull we've been through. She-Hulk, always just a generically good card, cost 1 less for each unspent energy last turn. So if you do go through the point you aren't able to play something down, this gets cheaper and cheaper as it goes on. So by turn 3, if you didn't play anything down, you can play this on turn 4. It's not the most optimal play, but it's a 9 cost, so it does mean you get a bit more power on board. So generally, that is the deck. It's done very well for me in Conquest because it's generally not the easiest to answer because you are just playing a lot of big bodies, and unless they have the Shang-Chi, there isn't much they can do. Things you want to be avoiding, obviously, is Cosmo, Shang-Chi. That's why we have some of the pieces we have, so we can still go wide with bigger bodies. Things like the Odin, things like the Lizard, and that we generally have just good stats. But that is the list overall. Give it a try. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments if you tried it yourself, and let me know what Conquest decks you're playing. I feel like Conquest is a new addition to the game, well, newish addition to the game, and it's generally a nice way to play into things. It allows more of a different style of competitive play. It's definitely very different to ladder climbing. I have come to realise that what I would play in Conquest doesn't transfer as well to ladder climbing as much. There are some decks that are generally just that good. Yeah, it's fine, go for it. But I found as soon as somebody knows you're one-trick pony, you're kind of screwed. So I found this deck to be very good because you do have multiple avenues you can go down. And yeah, it's performed well for me. So thanks for tuning in to Gordo's Games, and I'll catch you next time.